Hello everyone, Time to Grind here, and today I wanted to give you guys kind of a review over the HTC Vive and kind of what I think it's going to do in the future. So pretty much I haven't been able to make a video, well, I could have made a video in like the last two and a half weeks, but I recently got the HTC Vive and I have been super obsessed with it. It's one of the most immersive pieces of equipment I've ever used in my life, and it's really game changing. So I've kind of been a little obsessed with that, and I've been I wanted to kind of experience it a good amount before I kind of talked about it. In kind of like a little VR review. I know it's been out for a while, but I just now, like, it just came out and it's a hip and trendy review for it. But it's a review, based off of where it's at right now and how much I liked it and stuff like that. But first of all, if you don't know what the HTC Vive is it is pretty much the best piece of VR, virtual reality equipment out there right now. That's available for consumers, because you have all of those like Google Cardboard and the Samsung Gear thing or whatever, and those things that you just put on attached to your phone and you can look around, and it's pretty much just a glorified, like, it's just using the gyroscope. But the reason why the HTC Vive is so great is mainly because of room scale. As of right now, it's like the only thing with full room scale experience. And what that means is you put two cameras, and they're not even cameras, they can't even watch you, they're more like light sensor things, if you're scared about privacy stuff. They're like light sensors opposite corners of your room, and it watches you, and you have these two controllers, and you can kind of interact with things and also walk around, so you're not just sitting in your chair in front of your desk with a headset on and then oh wow, I can look around. No, I can actually interact. If I'm being shot at, I can duck, and I could jump on the ground and lie down, and in some games like Onward, I will legitimately be lying down on the ground. And it's super immersive, and I personally think it is the future of gaming. I know a lot of people think that VR is a gimmick, and I also think that most of those people haven't experienced true VR. They've been using the Google Cardboard, and they're like, oh, gaming with, on a Google Card, yeah, it's stupid. It's hard to find a single person, in my experience, that has used the HTC Vive and has actually played good games on it, that doesn't think it's the next biggest thing. It's really great, and I'm not gonna lie, it is one of those early adopter type of things. The price point's a little high, and that's kind of to be expected, considering this is like the first real consumer friendly, not consumer friendly, but available widely to consumers. Great VR thing for PC gaming. Anyways, you have the PSVR for the PlayStation. It's better than those like Google Cardboard and stuff, but it's nowhere close to as good as the HTC Vive. So one of the things I wanted to do is I first of all wanted to kind of give some pros and cons of the Vive. And like I said before, the biggest pro that the HTC Vive has is how immersive it is. It is one of the most immersive things ever, and that's because of a lot of things. The main thing being the room scale, and so say you're in a game and there's a table and there's a stapler on the table. A lot of the times you can legitimately walk over to it and grab it and then throw it somewhere. Like you can walk, you're not holding down W and then clicking the mouse to get it, and you can just look around with the headset. You can legitimately walk over to the place, and then you can pick it up. And what's great is the controllers are actually really good. They look kind of like, I don't know, Wii remotes on steroids, but they're so much better than that. And one of the great things that the controllers do is a lot of games kind of incorporate some type of vibration or feedback on the controllers. So say I pick up a stapler in a game, the controller is going to give a little vibration, so it actually feels kind of like I'm picking up something, I'm interacting with it, which just adds to the immersion as well. And the graphics, are good. They're not like 8-bit graphics and stuff like that. They're good. And the audio is good enough, and it's just overall as an experience, it's sometimes really easy to forget where you are. You take off the headset and you're like, oh, I'm just literally just in my room. I'm not actually in space fighting aliens or something like that. It gets really immersive. Another really good pro is that there are actually a lot of very fun games and experiences But like I said, because of the fact that we are kind of early in the VR stage, a lot of them are going to be indie games, and there's nothing really wrong with that. There's a lot of great indie games. A lot of the games I'm playing now, Onward, military shooter that's really good, indie game made by a single person. Stuff like that. And so we don't have a whole lot of AAA title games, but we are coming. And Fallout 4, if you don't know, they are making, they're putting a lot of work onto a Fallout 4 VR version. And I think that's going to be huge for VR because of the fact that, it's going to make it more mainstream, because a lot of people know about Fallout 4. So if you're looking at it and it has VR, a lot of people that didn't know about VR or how good things like the HTC Vive is and stuff like that, they're going to be exposed to it. And one of the last pros is that it's overall glitch-free. Of course you do need a good enough computer to run VR, and there's a program out there on Steam that'll actually tell you whether your computer is VR ready, because you have to be able to get at least 90 FPS and above consistently in all the games. Otherwise, because if you get frame rate drops on a 2D game, you're looking at it and you're like, okay, I'm dropping frames. But when you're super immersed, and then say if it were to drop to 30 FPS, that's going to be really, really bad. Not only is it going to break your immersion, but it's going to be nauseating, honestly. And so there's kind of that. So those are the biggest pros. The biggest thing being just how immersive it is and all of the things it utilizes to make it that immersive. But there are some cons. One of the main cons I do want to talk about is it can make you motion sick and nauseous a little bit, but that's honestly up to the person. So far, I have only had one nauseous experience where I fully felt motion sick, and that was in this game called Pavlov, I think, or something like that. And Onward, if the game I've been showing a little bit of, that military shooter, you can walk around in your room scale, but the main way you're going to be walking, long distances, is with the left. You're going to use your left thumb on this little trackpad thing, and it kind of tricks your mind because your brain thinks that you're walking, but you're really not. And so it's a little jarring at first, but you get used to it in 5 minutes or something like that. Most people do. For me, Pavlov is like that. It uses the same locomotion system, but it's a lot faster. And I couldn't get used to it. And I had to stop after 45 minutes, and I could not play it anymore. I couldn't play any more VR for that day. I was so sick to my stomach. And each person, it's going to be on an individual cases. So, there are some locomotion systems that are the best for the most amount of people, but it's up to you. You could use a locomotion system in a game that no one finds jarring or anything, and it might make you sick to your stomach. So it's not really the best con. That's why I wanted to put it first so I could explain it's not really a con, because it's up to the individual, and that's more of that person rather than the Vive itself. But there are developers that are working on better locomotion systems, and in the future there's probably going to be certain locomotion systems that are more standard than others because of the fact that they make less people motion sick. But if you're motion sick at every locomotion system ever, the Vive may honestly not be for you. Or you might want to hold off until there's locomotion systems that don't make you sick. But other than that, most of the cons that I attribute to the Vive have to do with the fact, have some way contribute to breaking immersion. So most of the cons I have with it just are simple things that break your immersion, because the whole point of VR is how immersive it is, and you can kind of do anything in your world with the room scale. You can walk around wherever you want, and so anything that breaks the immersion it hurts it a lot. So one of the main examples, I'm saying the word example a lot, one of the main examples is the wired headset. So the headset itself, it's actually a lot better than it used to be, because there used to be 3 cords, and you would have to, all 3 of them would run from the headset to your computer. Now there's a 3-in-1, so all of them are kind of put into a 1 cord, and it's pretty long. But say you're in a shooter and you're constantly twirling around, you look to your left and then you look to your left, and you keep turning around. The wire itself is going to maybe get tangled and wrap around you, and you can definitely feel it. There's some points when I'm playing games that I want to orientate myself correctly just so I'm not feeling the cord, and that's definitely a problem. But they are releasing a wireless attachment in the next couple of months. It's going to be over $100, I know that, but it's going to be like, it's not going to be that expensive, but that will get rid of that con completely, because the people that have used it have said that, you know, it doesn't lag or anything, and being able to not have to have that wire is going to be huge. So it's a con now, but if you choose to get that wireless adapter, I know I will be, when it does come out, you know, that's definitely going to help a lot. Another thing is that, like I said earlier, is there's not a lot of AAA title games. And that's not necessarily a problem. I mean, I'm a huge indie guy. You know, when I first got into PC gaming, didn't have a good computer, and for 4 years, it was only indie games and TF2. And so I love indie games to death. And so there's a lot of great indie games out there. You know, you have Onward, you have, you know, most of the good games for VR, honestly, are indie games. You know, there's a couple. Like Ubisoft made this kind of, I think they published it, but they put out a game that's kind of like a Town of Salem werewolf game, but you know, it's not really a full AAA title game. I think the first huge AAA title game we're going to see, for the Vive anyways, I know the PlayStation has some with Resident Evil and stuff like that. I think that there's like some type of exclusivity timed deal, I don't know. But Fallout 4 is going to be the big one that's going to, you know, if it's successful, more AAA title companies will start investing into VR. And because of that, because a lot of them are indie developers, there's a lot of shit on the store. There's a lot of, you know, things tend to... Okay, so a lot of the games are expensive because, you bought an $800 Vive? You know, most of the customers are going to be willing to pay $20. The problem is a lot of these games are mere experiences that last an hour and then you're gone, or they're, you know, this whole early access phase because, you know, VR hasn't been out for a while, so these people haven't had time to come out with the full games, so there's not a lot of there's not a lot of finished content. So like as an example, Onward, some of the game you're seeing here, that's an early access, but there's one developer, but he's consistently updating the game, and the game is worth the money by far. There's some games that are hour-long single-player experiences are in early access, and they're never going to get updated ever. So you definitely have to watch out for that. But you could easily just kind of be cautious of that just by, I use Reddit a lot for like recommendations and stuff like that. There's a Vive subreddit, and I use that a lot. You just want to make sure that the games you're buying, if you want to buy an early, like for my rule for early access, I'm only going to buy that game in early access if I would be willing to spend the money I am now for the product I'm getting now. I'm not going to buy it because I think in a year it'll be fun to play. No, then I'll buy it in a year. If I'm going to buy a game in early access, it has to be worth my money when I buy it. So if you think it'll be worth your money, yeah, go ahead and buy it. But I would just definitely be careful of that. And one of the last big cons that will be fixed in the future, like most of these cons, is that a lot of the multiplayer-based games don't have very big player bases. Onward is one of the exceptions. It normally has like 140 people playing the game in my region at any time, and so there's constant, that doesn't seem like a lot. Consider 800,000 people playing, CSGO at any given time, but it's because of the fact that you have to purchase an $800 Vive, and there's all this stuff attached. So Onward normally is fine, but there's a lot of games, especially shooters and stuff like that are paid, that tend to not have a lot of players. And so one of the things the devs have to do is kind of incorporate a good bot system, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but you just have to be careful of that. I would recommend looking up the player base using Enhanced Steam or Steam Spy or anything, one of those websites, to figure out if the multiplayer game you're buying is actually going to have a player base. But overall, most of these cons will be fixed in the future. The things like the wired headset, not being a lack of AAA title games, and all this early access crap. A lot of that's going to be fixed over time. It's because of the fact that we are in the very baby steps of VR. But in a couple of years, I'd say, probably around 3, 4, 5, VR is going to be a lot cheaper. It's going to be a lot more advanced. You're going to be seeing things like the wireless adapter being, I would actually think that, in the second version of the Vive, that they said is going to come out in like 2018-ish, That might ship with a wireless adapter. We don't know. But, you know, there's prototypes of full bodysuits, gloves that, you know, track each finger movement. And there's just going to be a lot of different advancements, and it's going to get cheaper and cheaper the later we go on, because that's just how technology works. But I definitely think VR is the future of gaming, because of the fact that it's just so immersive, and like playing Onward, where if you're being fired from or shot from a window, you can duck down and then you can crawl on the ground and, you know, peek your gun out of the door and stuff like that. Going from that to like CS:GO, and you're like, oh, to crouch I press C, you know. And I don't think traditional 2D games are going to go away. I just think that we are going to see VR get so mainstream in the future. I think it is the future of gaming. Wholeheartedly agree. And I would suggest you use a Vive before you, you know, kind of just dismiss it. Like, you know, you use the Google Cardboard at your, you know, your cousin's house, and that's your only experience of VR. I would highly suggest you to try demoing a Vive at some point. But either way, that was kind of my video talking about what I liked and didn't like about the Vive, and, you know, what I can expect from it in the future. It was a little long of a video, but that's kind of because it was a review and, you know, how I think it's going to be the future of gaming and all that stuff like that. But I am going to be making future videos that have to do with the Vive. So if you have any cool games, if you've watched any or played any really cool games on the Vive that you really want to see me play, you know, definitely tell me in the comments down below. If you want to ask anything about it, you know, same thing, ask me in the comments. But yeah, so stay tuned for, you know, some VR videos in the future. I think it's really cool. It's a little harder to record for the normal 2D games, but not by too much. So yeah, so thank you guys for watching so much. If you enjoyed this video, then consider leaving a like down below and subscribing to see more content and news. And like always, guys, see you next time.